Tonight on the 31 Nights of Halloween Horror, when you go out for a fun night with your boyfriend or girlfriend and you decide to go to that nice secluded place, just keep this in mind. The killer is still among us. Tonight's movie, The Killer is Still Among Us. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the 31 Nights of Halloween Horror! Triskaidekaphilia! Yes, tonight! Oh, it's the final countdown! The countdown to extinction of the 31 Nights of Halloween Horror. At least this year's festivities. So tonight, I thought, you know what? I am going to review a Giallo whose ending struck me as quite brilliant, fitting with the themes of this Giallo and basically what it's about. I thought, you know what, I have to review this one for the 31 Nights of Halloween Horror, and that Giallo is The Killer is Still Among Us. Yes, The Killer is Still Among Us. What is The Killer is Still Among Us about? Well, it is based on, or inspired by, depending on who you talk to, a series of murders that occurred in Italy. Apparently there is a madman, maybe, a mad person out there who is targeting young lovers who go to forested areas, secluded areas for a little bit of privacy, for a little bit of that sensuality, and he kills them and then mutilates the poor woman's bodies. Anyways, the movie follows a college student. She is an aspiring criminologist, and her dissertation is on this killer. And she is using all of her assets that are available to her to create a criminal profile and perhaps even figure out the identity of this murderer. And through her investigations, she is led into the seedy underground of voyeur clubs. Yes, they're clubs of people who engage in a trade of, let's say, privately recorded videos. I mean, that's not quite the way it is. Let's just say she goes on one of the raids or whatever and finds out that there's people who go to these places where young lovers tend to do their thing and will put sound devices on their cars and record the acts and of course then sell them to other members of the club or maybe trade. Anyways, it's seedy underbelly of society. Anyways, she's doing that in hopes that, well, this person obviously has a knowledge of where these certain lovers tend to meet and therefore might be part of this underground, I want to say society, but this underground group of people. Anyways, of course, during her investigation, she meets a coroner and she falls in love with him, but he is very adamant in saying that she should just work on something else, not this case. And in fact, a lot of people are telling her not to work on this case. And then she starts getting intimidating phone calls. She almost gets run over by a car. And let's just say she starts to think that she might be under the eyes of the killer. Maybe because she was getting too close. I don't know, but what happens in the movie, you'd have to check it out and see. So let's get to those scores, shall we? Violence and gore. I am giving this a 3.5 out of 5. Look, the killer's weapon of choice is a pistol. And there is some nice squib action going on here. But really, the blood gore parts of this movie are more in the mutilation scenes of the victims after they're murdered. In fact, the last kill, oh my goodness, actually it's after the kill, is rather nasty. It's reminiscent of that one scene from New York Rippers. So if you're telling me, but it goes a little bit harder core. Anyways, 3.5 out of 5. Shock value, I'm giving this a 4 out of 5. There are some great moments of suspense, especially when she's alone in the house and she thinks that, oh, maybe the killer is coming after her. There's also just the shock of the mutilations and the ending too, which is pretty cool in my opinion. But oh man, that final mutilation is just bloody and nasty and horrid, and really, if you're sensitive, people are not going to like that, and they even may be traumatized. It's really nasty stuff. But if you can stomach that, the rest of the movie is pretty interesting. So 4 out of 5 for shock value. Moving on to plot, and I'm giving this a 4 out of 5. This is one of those movies that the strength of the awesomeness of the ending, in my opinion, makes up for a lot of other things going on in this movie. The movie is a little uneven pace-wise. There's a lot of non-murderous action, some investigation. A lot also kind of to set up a string of possible suspects. We have a very massive amount of possible suspects, from the coroner to this kind of I don't know, underground doctor, but sort of like shady doctor. We've got the people in the voyeur community, including this one guy who really looks creepy and actually was arrested at one time. And it's a plethora of possibilities. And in fact, they even bring in a seance into this movie, which actually kind of shows the desperation of investigators at this point, because they are having a hard time finding this killer and they're just throwing everything at it. So I think having that actually makes it more real in a sense. It just shows kind of the desperation that they're having trying to figure out who the killer is. Anyway, so 4 out of 5. Moving on to acting, I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. Yeah, there's a little bit of the standard overblown, over-dramatic acting in Italian cinema, but overall I think everyone does a very solid job. I really do like the drive and ambition, but also the vulnerability and sort of like, oh my goodness, what am I getting myself into? What's going on? That the main character portrays through her performance. So kudos to her. Very nicely done. 3.5 out of 5. Moving on to Nudity, and I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. It's mostly the scenes when he kills the couples and then drags the naked body to a spot where he can perform his nastiness, and that's mostly where all this is. Outside of that, there was quite a bit. So, but it's also prefaced by there's quite a bit of violence involved in it too. So, 3 out of 5. Moving on to enjoyment factor, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. I like the story. I love the ending. In fact, if they did a different type of ending, maybe my opinion of this movie will not be as great as it is. But since I think they nailed it with the ending, I think it's a classic. Honestly, I think it elevates it. Sure, it doesn't have the same sort of visual flair as other giallos out there, but I think it's clever enough. It's definitely nasty enough, and it it kind of stays with you. It's the kind of thing that, after you're just kind of thinking like, oh man, yeah. So, yeah, and honestly, this movie is kind of controversial too, because there was a lot of accusations thrown that they're profiting off of these horrid events that occurred. And sure, you can do that, and perhaps there is a bit of that there, but I think still it's a story to be told for sure, and a quite entertaining one and thought-provoking one also. So 4 out of 5. My overall impression is a 4 out of 5. The movie is pretty well put together, but I just love it's one of those things where like you can have kind of like a ho-hum movie. Not saying that this movie is kind of ho-hum. This movie is kind of I would say slightly above average, a little bit above average. For most part, outside of the really brutal, especially that last one, that really brutal scene. The fact that we get this sort of supernatural seance that happens in there, which would sort of normally not fit, but makes sense in the grand scheme of things. And the way that the ending hits, I think, just elevates it to that level. So 4 out of 5, and that averages out to a pretty darn strong 3.7 out of 5. I mean, it definitely gets it gets a little bit of bonus points, but most of that score is on the fact of what I would consider brilliance of the plot and the ending and the nice performance of the actors and actresses. So yeah, kudos. So there you have it. Oh yes, fine. So also I do have to say that like these murders were never officially solved too. So that's one of those things that also kind of sticks in the back of your mind. Anyways, and also makes you appreciate the ending a bit more, because they could have done some things where they pointed their finger squarely on something that they could have completely made up, or someone that they might think was the killer but was never found guilty, and that in itself is also kind of like an iffy proposition, because that's close to like just saying, hey, this is the killer, and that can really ruin somebody's life or their reputation or their family's lives, just through accusation, especially with something that's kind of high profile like a movie. You're going to make those accusations, you better have some pretty good evidence. But the way this movie handles it, I think, is quite beautiful. So there you have it. The killer is still among us. Tell me in the comment section below, what do you think? Have you seen The Killer is Still Among Us? Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Are you interested in watching it? Pick it up on the, pick it up from Vinegar Syndrome. It's part of the Forgotten Giallo, which is also, I think, kind of a travesty if they consider that a Forgotten Giallo, because I think it was pretty good. But yeah, I can see in the context of when it was made and like the controversy that it could have kind of just like slipped away for a while, but I think it's pretty strong, and I think any Giallo fan should be taking this and watching this, because I think it's that good. So anyways, don't forget to do all that: rate, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and to remember to stay scary, and thank you again for watching another episode of the 31 Nights of Halloween Horror. 2 more episodes after this. 2 more episodes. Oh my goodness. Oh, what am I going to do? Slashers. That's what I'm going to do. Slashers. Anyways. Alright. Stay scary, internet, and always remember to get a hotel room. Get a hotel room. I know it's expensive, but just there's too much crazy shit going on in the world, especially nowadays, that you're going to drive to some secluded place, and it's also a car. It's not that comfortable. Trust me. I do have, even though I am a complete loser and loveless sack of complete nothingness. Even though I am very unlucky with love, and I am really, really a complete failure in all of my relationships. I do have experience in this, though. I do have experience. The car is not that great. It's not that comfortable. It's awkward. It's like, get a room. Just get a room. Get a room, guys. It's not that hard. Put down some money. I mean, shoot. You know, especially you like the girl, to show her a little respect, right? Get her a room. Pay the money for it. You know, I mean, you're going to have a better experience. Trust me. Trust me. Okay.